Halifax, December the 6th, 1917. At 4 minutes and 35 seconds past 9, the clock stopped. The man who owned it did not. Halifax in 1917 was Canada's busiest wartime port. 60,000 people lived along the harbour. Every convoy bound for Europe formed up in Bedford Basin, troop transports, freighters, ammunition ships, the lifeline of the British war effort steaming out under naval escort, 2 and 3 at a time. The city ran on coal smoke and ships' whistles. The waterfront never quite slept. A steel submarine net stretched across the harbor mouth, raised every night and lowered every dawn. Because 1917 was the third year of unrestricted U-boat warfare, and the North Atlantic just outside Halifax had already swallowed nearly 4,000 Allied ships. The net was a thin steel mesh on brass turnbuckles. It was the city's only defense. In the Richmond district, the working-class North End neighborhood crowded along the rail yards and Pier 6. Frances Coleman dressed her 2-year-old daughter Eileen in a blue dress she had sewn herself. The dress survives. It is in a glass case at the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic in Halifax. The collar is hand-stitched, the blue is a soft cornflower, faded now, but you can still see what Frances chose for her daughter that morning. Her husband, Vincent, Vince to almost everyone, was a railway dispatcher for the Canadian Government Railways, 45 years old. He left the house on Russell Street at 7:15 and walked the 6 blocks to Richmond Station, a small 2-story wooden building in the middle of the rail yards, a few hundred feet from the water. He carried his pocket watch in his vest pocket. He started his shift at 8 o'clock. 2 ships were converging on Halifax that morning. The first was the SS Emo, a 430-foot Norwegian chartered steamer, long and narrow, with the words Belgian Relief painted in 8-foot red letters across a white panel on her side. She was empty, riding high, bound for New York to pick up famine supplies for occupied Belgium. Her captain was Håkon From. Her harbor pilot was William Hayes. The other ship was the SS Mont-Blanc, a French tramp steamer, 320 feet long, single funnel, 2 masts, hull painted dark. Captain Aimé Lemedec, Halifax pilot Frances Mackey. She had loaded her cargo in New York and steamed north under escort. She was, by any measure that mattered, a floating bomb. In her holds, in wooden barrels packed tight against the bulkheads, 2,367 tons of picric acid, a yellow crystalline explosive, more powerful than TNT, far more sensitive to shock. Then 250 tons of TNT itself, then 62 tons of gun cotton, all of it bound for the Western Front. All of it sealed below decks in barrels Captain Lemedec had personally inspected before leaving New York. And on the open deck, lashed in steel drums and barrels, 246 tons of benzol, a high-octane motor fuel, more volatile than gasoline. The Mont-Blanc had no place left below to put it. So the most flammable substance she carried sat outside, exposed to the morning air, with nothing between it and a spark but a coat of paint. 8:45 in the morning. The Narrows, the kilometer-wide choke point between Halifax Harbour and Bedford Basin, the slim throat of water that every ship must pass through to reach the open sea. The Mont-Blanc, fully loaded, pushing north into the basin to join a convoy forming up that afternoon. The Emo, empty, racing south out of the basin to make up lost time on a run to New York. Both inbound, both at the wrong angle, both, by maritime convention, on the wrong side of the channel. On the bridge of the Mont-Blanc, Lemedec and Mackey saw the Emo bearing down. On the bridge of the Emo, From and Hayes saw the Mont-Blanc. Each crew believed it had the right of way. Both captains held course. They exchanged a bewildering series of whistle signals. 1 short blast, then 2, then 3. Each ship signaling its intent, each ship countering the other. The signals contradicted, the distance closed. Neither yielded. The collision itself was almost gentle. At the last second, the Emo reversed engines, which only swung her bow inward, and the two hulls met at perhaps 1 knot, a slow steel kiss off the Halifax shoreline. But the impact knocked over benzol drums on the Mont-Blanc's open deck. The fuel spilled across the planking. Sparks from the grinding plates lit it, and in less than a minute, the entire forward deck was on fire. The French crew knew what they were sitting on. Le Midi ordered abandon ship. The men launched 2 lifeboats and rowed hard for the Dartmouth shore, shouting warnings back across the water. But they were shouting in French, and the longshoremen on Pier 6 spoke English, and no one on the dock understood. The burning Mont-Blanc, with no one at the helm, drifted unattended toward the wooden piers of Halifax's north end. 20 minutes. That was all the time the city had left. For 20 minutes, the abandoned ship drifted toward Pier 6, fire climbing her rigging, a black column of smoke rising 500 feet above the water. The harbor fire bell rang. The tug Stella Maris steamed out to try to tow her clear. A pumper crew from the Halifax Fire Department raced down Barrington Street. And from the city itself, from the schools, the rooming houses, the sugar refinery, the cotton mill, people came to their windows to watch. They had never seen a ship burn like this, so they pressed their faces close to the glass. Inside Richmond Station, Vincent Coleman was at the brass telegraph key when a Royal Navy sailor burst through the door, breathless, shouting about a munition ship on fire in the harbor. Coleman knew the schedule. The morning passenger train from St. John, train number 10, was due into Richmond in 8 minutes. 300 passengers aboard. It was about to roll directly into the blast radius. Coleman and his chief clerk William Lovett grabbed their coats, started for the door. Coleman stopped. He turned. He walked back to the key. He sat down. He began to tap. Hold up the train. Ammunition ship afire in harbor making for Pier 6 and will explode. Guess this will be my last message. Goodbye, boys. Across the water, on the Dartmouth shore, in the small Mi'kmaq community of Turtle Grove, a settlement of perhaps 24 families that had stood on that shore for generations, the elder Jerry Lonecloud's 2 daughters, Hannah and Rosie, were beginning their day. The morning smoke from their stove was just rising. From their door, they could see the burning ship across the harbor. They had no warning of what was about to happen. At 9:04 and 35 seconds in the morning, the Mont-Blanc detonated. 2.9 kilotons of TNT equivalent energy. A shock wave tearing outward at 1,500 meters per second. Faster than the speed of sound, faster than nerves, faster than thought. Every window in Halifax shattered inward at the same instant. It was the largest man-made explosion in human history. The hull of the Mont-Blanc was vaporized. Her anchor shank, 1,100 pounds of forged iron, was hurled 2.5 miles inland and landed in a field. The barrel of one of her deck cannons came to rest 5 kilometers across the harbor on the Dartmouth side. It would hold the record as the largest explosion ever, until Hiroshima, 28 years later. A tsunami, 60 feet high, surged out from the blast point. It pressed 3 city blocks into the Halifax shoreline. It swept away Turtle Grove. Hannah and Rosie Lonecloud and their entire community vanished in a single instant. On the far side of the harbor, it lifted the IMO bodily, 430 feet of steel, and threw her up onto the Dartmouth shore, where she would lie aground for the next 4 months. By nightfall, the count was beginning. Nearly 2,000 dead, 9,000 wounded, 6,000 left homeless in the middle of a maritime winter. 325 acres of the North End, the Richmond district where Francis and Eileen Coleman had been at home an hour before, was simply gone, flattened to the foundations. Vincent Coleman's Richmond station was rubble. Then, 20 hours later, the storm came. By the afternoon of December 7th, the temperature dropped to -4 degrees Celsius. The wind picked up to 55 kilometers per hour with gusts above 90. 40 centimeters of snow fell across the ruined city in a single night. Survivors trapped under collapsed buildings, some still alive, froze where they lay. Days later, in the rubble of Richmond Station, under snow, searchers found Vincent Coleman at his telegraph key. His wife Frances, who had survived the blast with their daughter Eileen, was given his pocket watch, the brass telegraph key, his fountain pen, and his wallet. They are all that came home. The watch had stopped at 4 minutes and 35 seconds past 9. Frances kept it for the rest of her life. It is on display now in Halifax, beside Eileen's blue dress. Two hours after the blast, a telegram reached the Massachusetts State House in Boston. Send doctors, send nurses, send supplies. Governor Samuel McCall read it once. He did not wait for clarification. He did not poll his cabinet. He picked up a telephone and began requisitioning a train. "700 miles, through a 40-centimeter blizzard." The first American relief train pulled out of Boston's North Station that same evening with surgeons, 10 nurses, and crates of medical supplies. It fought drifts through northern Maine, lost time in New Brunswick, kept going. It pulled into Halifax in the pre-dawn dark of December the 8th, 2 days after the blast, and the medical teams went straight from the platform to the field hospitals. They did not stop working for 36 hours. A year after the explosion, in December 1918, Nova Scotia sent Boston a Christmas tree. A large spruce, cut from the Cape Breton woods, shipped south by rail as a gift of thanks for what Boston had sent north. The tradition was revived in 1971. It has been sent every year since. Boston's official Christmas tree, the one that stands on the Common every December in the cold, comes from Halifax. A debt the city has chosen, every year, never to consider paid. The clock stopped. The city did not. And in Halifax, the harbor remembered. For more big stories told small, like and subscribe to Mainstreet Miniatures.